Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today, we're going to take a non-spoiler look at Chapter 47 of Kaiju number 8, and my goodness! Okay, so no spoilers. Kaiju number 8, Chapter 47. Something that really stuck out to me about this chapter in the no spoiler zone was just how good Matsumoto is at hype and how deeply suspicious Matsumoto has made me of tropes. For instance, you remember way back in, chapter 34, 35, you had that scientist guy with the striped tie and the floppy black hair. He was freaking out over the fact that Kaiju number 8 and the director general were actually breaking the bunker they were fighting in, and he was just kind of there to repeat what was going on for the other technicians in the operation room. And that is such a classic trope, not just in manga, not just in shonen manga, but pretty much in any science fiction situation where something freakish is happening. There has to be one scientist who's telling the audience what's going on, while he's actually in real life he does need to be relaying information to the other scientists who aren't actively looking at the monitors. It's just a thing you do in labs. It's a matter of courtesy. And it's such a common trope that normally you wouldn't even think about it. But in this situation, Matsumoto has made us so paranoid that I can't stop thinking about that and wondering when that back character is going to get his story arc. And that's just a silly little example. But in this chapter, the big thing is it made me think back to everything that we've seen about the deputy director Itami, and he did minor spoilers. He doesn't really do anything in this chapter, nothing that he hasn't been doing in every chapter previously, but there's just, in every previous chapter, every time we see Itami, there's that semi-feral look in his eyes. Like he's a man who has trained himself into self-control, but I cannot wait to see what happens. Well, all the old guard. I think we've seen 3 or 4 of the older guys. There's Eye Patch Guy, there's Baldy, and of course we've already seen what the general director can do. But I really want to see what Itami can do, and I want to see what Itami and general director Shinomiya do when they get out on the battle together. In this chapter, once again, we get a really good look at how skilled Matsumoto is, not just at building hype for fights and what's going to happen next, but at dropping just the right amount of clues and breadcrumbs and Chekhov's guns. So we're dealing in this fight. You've got Kaiju number 9, and in the previous chapters we had, for instance, in the last chapter it was revealed that Kaiju number 9 has certain abilities and behaves in certain ways because of certain things. We had the big reveal where he has multiple bodies, and all of these things were things that were hinted way back. For instance, the multiple body thing, that was hinted way back in chapter, I think it was 7 or 9. Anyway, the General Tachikawa base application arc, where we see Kaiju number 9's body out of existence while it is casually chatting with the Hanjo that it's juicing up to kill Kikoru. That's right after number 9 zapped Kikoru with his finger guns. Anyway, Kaiju number 9 is fully capable of producing multiple bodies. What that means, I don't know exactly yet, because even with this latest chapter, all the full details haven't been fully revealed. This is probably something that will get slowly over the course of the entire series as we get into the 200th chapter, I'm hoping. But we had these hints that caused some of us to suspect that Kaiju number 9 had multiple bodies, and sure enough, Kaiju number 9 showed his multiple bodies. And do you remember way back when we thought that First Division Captain Narumi was just 100% this awesome combat officer and probably a strict rule follower, and it turns out that he wasn't, that he was just this kind of slob in his off hours, but there were hints of that in his behavior when he first showed up. We get more of that this chapter, and it won't be a spoiler, but remember the floppy-haired scientist? He says something as he's relaying information, or maybe it's another scientist. I'm not sure who says it, but one of those technicians says something, and it just makes you shiver because something's going to happen, something that they're expecting, something that they have a lead on. And because of the way Matsumoto writes, this is something that we've been expecting for dozens of chapters. And we want to see what happens, and we've been asking questions. And finally we get some answers, but we only get more questions. And the big main question that we wanted to know still hasn't been answered. And so we've just been handed this appetizer made from the same material as the crumbs we've been seeing sprinkled throughout the series. And this is just excellent writing. Matsumoto must have had a fantastic plan. I bet Matsumoto goes back and rereads his work on a regular basis. And the research and the science and the truth in this fictional work is just fantastic. And when that technician says the thing that he says that indicates that something we've been anticipating is going to happen, and yet we reach the end of the chapter and it hasn't really happened yet, but we've learned so much more about the thing that we were anticipating, that is just excellent writing. And I cannot wait till the next chapter. And this might explain why we get these weird 3-chapter lumps. So I said Matsumoto must have a long-term plan for his story. He knows where this story is going. He's not just winging it. And I think that a lot of these story arcs were originally designed to be released in 3-chapter batches. So I think what Matsumoto does is he works ahead and he gives us one 3-chapter batch. Then say 6 chapters that come in batches of 2 and every fortnight, so that we still get the 3-chapter beat. It's just a little slower. And then when he's built up enough ahead of time, he drops the big 3-chapter arc that in this case ends in an amazing final panel. And again, this for some reason, this chapter didn't feel quite as short as usual. Maybe there were more smaller panels. Maybe there was more technically going on. It felt like it took me a little bit longer to read it. It probably took me the same amount. It takes me the same amount of time to read every chapter. But this chapter actually felt a little longer, a little more satisfying. Maybe it's because, it's the end of that 3-chapter arc. And I think that really just goes to show how important it is to plan things out. Not something that I do exceptionally well as an author. I generally just tend to wing it and tell each story as I go. But Matsumoto is really good at this. Matsumoto is one of the masters. And there's just so much in this chapter. We get a look at the mentality that the high command of the Defense Force is going into this operation with, how they look at Kaiju number 8. And it's very real and very human. These are human beings reacting to something that is both an incredible boon to them, an incredible benefit. Kaiju number 8's power fighting on their side is tremendous. And yet, they're still keenly aware that they have no idea what the little guy is doing inside of Kafka. Who is in control there? Is it the human Kafka Hibino? Is it that kaiju that crawled down his throat, took over his body without his permission, in an incredible violation of human personhood, therefore showing it had no real consideration for that, and therefore might not have other consideration for other aspects of human life? And they're excited and thrilled to see this power, and they're terrified of that power. And Matsumoto just really expresses all of this by giving us all these different perspectives. And it shows us the power of Kaiju number 8 as seen through all these different eyes. We see it through Kokoru's eyes, and Director General Shinamaya's, and Deputy Director Itami's, and the technicians, and Captain Narumi's. And it just gives you this really realistic look at how people would be reacting to something this strange and this powerful and this beneficial. And again, I'll say it again and again, Matsumoto humans very well. Matsumoto just has a brilliant ability to craft these human interactions that just feel real. This is how I can see people reacting like this in situations. They're not making stupid mistakes. They're not being obnoxiously dense about anything. And you have, again, on the one hand, the people like the Director General Shinamaya, who genuinely does seem to be wanting to help Kafka Hibino as much as he can. Kokoru, who's his friend. And people like Captain Narumi, who seem to look at him strictly as a weapon, or who thinks he thinks that way. I think Captain Narumi is a bit more sentimental than he lets himself believe. Then you have wild cards like the Deputy Director. We haven't had a chance to see under his skin yet, like the same way we have with the General Director. And I really think that Deputy Director Itami, the baldy guy who's always there by the general director's side, I think there's a good chance that we're going to get to see him just go feral at some point. Just pick up his weapon and get out there on the battlefield. And we're going to find out exactly why he holds himself in such firm control. And I am just looking forward to that so much. I could ramble on about this chapter. I don't think I've given any spoilers, but if I did, I'm sorry. There's still plenty more in the chapter. And now go check out the links below the video for a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote, a second book of human absurdity, Monty Python meets Star Trek, and peace out, my wonderful viewers. Also hit that like and subscribe, and I will see you later. Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote. Available on Indiegogo for the month of October 2020, and available for in demand through November. Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote, Monty Python meets Star Trek in the second book of Human Absurdity, a short story collection that will have you chuckling for years to come. Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote, available on Indiegogo. Go and get your copy now!